Thank you, Sean. Hi, my name is Steve Shirkey. I'm a solutions architect with AWS here in Singapore. Um, what I want to discuss with you is actually pragmatic usage of machine learning to deliver innovation for your customers. If you're a developer, if you're a company that's offering products and services on top of AWS, I want to introduce you to some of the services that you can plug into immediately and gain benefits from using the AWS application services for machine learning. So what is the relevance and why are we having this conversation? Why is Amazon feeling like they're bold enough to be able to talk to machine learning? And I think that actually we can talk about that in 5 different use cases. So the first is recommendation engines, and that's something that we've been doing since 1995. We started with the .com site where we offered book recommendations. That was an engine that we developed in 95. Later, we actually patented that. So in 98. So it literally 20 years of usage of machine learning in the .com business. The second area that we've worked a lot on is fulfillment center and automation. So using robotics, the Amazon robotics, which formerly Kiva Robotics, these are small devices that are essentially autonomous that work inside of a fulfillment center in order to lift up racks and bring them to pickers. So previously, obviously, if anyone's worked in a manufacturing or a warehousing environment, you know it's a very arduous task to go around picking up all this pick list items. And now this becomes a delivering of the product to the pickers, and it becomes faster, more efficient, and delivers at a bit lower cost for us as fulfillment within .com. There's also obviously the story, maybe a few of you already saw the video on YouTube of the drones. So we released, we're doing a piloting of Prime Air, which is drone delivery of products, doing that out of UK. We've also done a lot, obviously, with Alexa. How many people have heard of Alexa? All right, quite a show of hands. Great. So Alexa obviously is voice user interface. If you're like me, you get so used to it in the house that when you go travel and you're at a hotel, your first thought is, you know, Alexa, turn on the lights or do this. So it becomes almost an annoyance because of the convenience. But it's essentially the new wave of voice user interface. So the final category, and you may have seen this as well, it was profiled in different websites, about Amazon Go. And Amazon Go is essentially a new retail concept. So with the sensor fusion technology, it can actually monitor the shopper as they're going through the shopping experience and actually observe what the shopper has taken from the shelf, and then you walk out, and it's called just walk out technology. So with the sensor fusion, with all of this data, a massive amount of data, it's able to predict exactly what you've taken from a shelf. So I'll actually call out a personal experience. Like, again, I've been in industry for 20 plus years. You don't see a lot of things that kind of feel magical. That experience is a very magical experience, and I hope that you guys have a chance to see this yourself. But myself and a colleague were at the store, and he slips his hand in under my arm and grabs a drink, and then it came out under his bill. Thank goodness it did. So it's extremely amazing technology, very magical technology. So we obviously have done a lot in machine learning, and now when we think about the mission for AWS, it's about enabling our customers, our millions of customers. And so our mission with our ML story is to put machine learning in the hands of every developer in order to enable you to be able to deliver value to your customers and deliver innovation to your customers. So when we look at the slide of all the different customers that are public reference around AI and ML on AWS, it's a number of household names. You know, you have companies like FINRA, which tracks all the transactions in terms of market exchange data in New York. You have companies like, organizations like NASA that obviously have mission critical needs for their data and for predictive analytics. So all of these companies are public reference for AWS, and we have the most production workloads running AI and ML of the cloud providers. So we have a strong history and a strong experience with this area. Now, when we think about the story of what we offer to customers, we have different customers at different levels of adoption, right? So if you are truly a developer, and maybe I can get a show of hands, how many people in the room are developers? Don't be shy. Okay, good percentage. As a developer, obviously, you can crack the books and try to figure out a lot of the training mechanisms for the algorithmic modeling and the building of training of models. You can figure that all out yourself, but obviously, if you can leverage immediately at an API call to be able to get the information that you need to be able to perform the activities that make your product more innovative, that's essentially this application services layer. So we'll talk about that layer. I just also want to mention, obviously, that as you experience needs that change, or maybe you identify cases that are custom to your particular business, then of course you have other choices and you can start moving down that stack, that offering. So you can move to platform services. And actually, Andy Watts will be on after me, and he'll discuss the platform services, particularly around Amazon SageMaker, which was launched at reInvent 2017. And so you get finally at the lowest layer, and this is where you find that you completely need an absolutely custom solution, and you want to run deep learning in AWS, and we offer you that option as well. So you can run deep learning AMI, and you can have access to things like TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras, anything that you want to run. Most often, if it's a popular framework, it'll be available for you as you spin up a AMI and have access to NVIDIA drivers immediately installed. So there's a lot of power and capability at that lowest layer. So the idea is that as your needs change, or as you find that the application services don't work, often you may identify a lower level, how can I make this particular feature come together? So that's the story, and we're only talking about the top layer, and Andy will talk a little bit about the second layer. And so definitely stick around for that piece as well if you're interested to see that. So if we think about splitting that layer, we actually have two different segments to it. One is about vision services, so computer vision, right? So image classification, et cetera, how it identifies images, how do computers identify images. And then on the other side, we have things that are more language specific. So when we look at the stack again, we look at the box on the furthest left. That is our recognition services. And so within recognition, we launched recognition back at reInvent 2016. That was the still image analysis piece, and we're going to talk a bit about that. So when we think about the capabilities of recognition as a whole, and I already mentioned image, but we now have a video service as well. You think about the features that are shared between the two. You have a fully managed service. It's essentially doing all the training for you. You don't need to get a corpus of millions of photos in order to be able to obtain results immediately. Image analysis, you have all that built in. It can actually do sentiment analysis, object and scene detection. All of those features are built in as you supply a photo to the service or a video to the service. It can actually identify these aspects of the photo or of the video. So the video analysis just mentioned. The easy-to-use API. So a lot of development today is performed using RESTful interfaces and be able to call APIs. We provide you that. We also provide you SDKs in order to be able to access these APIs more easily. Real-time versus batch, you can do either. So the idea is you can submit those images or that video and submit it to perform any analysis. You can also do a batching process if you just simply have some perhaps public security video that you want to have analyzed later. So looking at the key features of recognition, and recognition has grown a lot since even it was first launched. But object and scene detection were released in the first version of it, or the initial version of it. Facial analysis was provided with sentiment analysis, identifying if the person has eyeglasses, beard, gender, general age, and grouping. Then also face recognition to be able to identify in a scene where are the faces inside that image. But we added some other features since then. So things like in April, we launched with unsafe image detection. This is last year. And we also launched celebrity recognition in the middle of last year. And then identifying text inside the image was also released more recently in November. And just yesterday, it was announced that we had refined the recognition process for facial matching and achieved even higher results. So we're continuing to prove based on customer feedback. That's obviously what drives our roadmap. That's what drives our direction. It's feedback from audience like you. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. Now, you may have seen this URL already, but you feel free to actually access this URL on your phone. You could actually go ahead and obtain a photo, take a photo of it. and be able to obtain some results back. So I just want to show how that looks on screen. So when you come to the website, you should see this take photo option. Make sure it's stable first. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, more stable. Sorry about that. Okay, so we take a photo. We select the photo. I'll try to find, it's askew, but it'll still figure it out. It can still rotate it. Do its analysis. All right. This is those random elements. Let's just go ahead and get our Wi-Fi going. Once more. Yeah, it's still connecting. Okay, so sorry, so now we have a result from that. We can see an age range. I will not verify this, but I'll say it's probably kind of close. No beard, no glasses at that moment, and gender is identified and detecting sentiment or smile at that point. Notice also that it actually gives me back a list of tags that are identified in that scene. So there's actually a car in the background. There's actually some other elements, so those are identified as well. So, so let's go back to the presentation. So you get an idea. That gives you a bit of an idea. And actually, I'm going to do some more demos that will actually give you even a better idea of what recognition, as well as the other services that we're going to talk about, can do. So the next thing that we look at is obviously video analysis. So what typically customers have been doing in the past was they were taking slices from their video feed using FFmpeg or whatnot, and then they actually submitted it to image recognition, the recognition image, and be able to get back some data about it. And that's great, but you lose motion context. So imagine I'm watching, I see two images. I see an image of a man standing. I see an image of a man who's on the ground. There's a loss of context to indicate that actually there was a transition that occurred, that the person fell or whatnot. So the idea is that capturing that information and being able to attain some kind of a motion context to the subject, that's the key for the video analysis. It's obviously usually done very manually, and often it leaves a lot of value unlocked. So imagine, say, a content producer who has loads and loads of video. They would only dedicate maybe some manual resources to tagging a certain amount of it or analyzing a certain amount of it. And now suddenly you can do this as a batch process. You can basically throw all the video you want at it, and you get back basically as much data as you wish. And so obviously it's a pay-as-you-go process, just like with everything else at Amazon Web Services. So that becomes a better economic model for delivering that value. So we've introduced recognition video. So the idea is that it does that same feature set that we saw before in terms of objects and scene detection and understanding unsafe images, celebrity recognition piece, face recognition, and also be able to handle real-time streaming in conjunction with Kinesis video streams. So let's look at what this looks like as an idea of how you can use this data. So the data starts appearing quickly. It sees a dog. It sees a person, identifies person one. It sees a car in the background. It's identified unique individuals in the scene. So as those people move, we actually have tracking information. So this is essentially, you're getting JSON data back from the service that tells you exactly what's happening in the scene. So from a public safety standpoint, you now can basically deal with multiple CCTV feeds and be able to analyze those and be able to react immediately to it rather than hiring someone to look at a screen to identify those same things. We have a number of customers currently using this. C-SPAN was able to successfully implement using recognition image, a capture to indicate who is speaking. C-SPAN is for politicians in the U.S. To promote themselves. It's a public feed, but it basically is a way where congressmen and senators will speak at the Congress, at the Capitol. And C-SPAN was spending a lot of time manually tagging every video to indicate who is in this scene. So suddenly they took 3 weeks to build that solution, and then they were able to release it, and now they've saved numerous hours of effort. Companies like, or not companies, but organizations like King County, who actually have the officers are equipped with a camera, and they can actually detect whether these individuals are missing or whatnot. So they're able to use that for facial matching on individuals. So the other part of the story, obviously, when we look at that, we mentioned computer vision. That's a very big part of the story. But the other part of it is the language services. So language services make up the remainder of that stack. I'll just go for this. So you have essentially 5 different services, and we're going to drill into each one of these. But those are the yellow blocks on the right. And so these are the 5 services, and we look at it from the top. We have transcribe. So the idea is that speech to text, to be able to translate that, what I'm speaking now, and be able to put it into a text format. And then from there, you can do anything you want in terms of analyzing it for sentiment or do whatnot. Things like Amazon Translate, which is just what's on the tin. It just simply translates text from English to Spanish, German, French, Portuguese, Arabic, and simplified Chinese, and vice versa. So you can translate both directions on that. Services like Poly, it's been out for over 16 months now, I believe, 17 months, which allows you to create lifelike speech using neural network technology underneath. And you have 52 different languages, or sorry, 52 different speaking voices and 20-some languages. And then comprehend. So comprehend is about sentiment analysis. So imagine you're basically dealing with Twitter feeds. You're able to analyze the content of those Twitter comments and be able to identify what is the sentiment from the audience. And we have Lex. And if anyone is familiar with Alexa, Lex is essentially the engine that it's the same technology as what runs Alexa. So the idea is that you can get automated speech recognition as well as natural language understanding components to that. So for building chatbots and tools like that. So I've already talked a bit about the use cases, but maybe drilling in on a few. You can imagine taking these services and combining them in unique and valuable ways. So you could obviously have a transcription that's occurring of a call center activity and be able to then try to draw sentiment analysis from that transcription. So when you think about these building blocks, these API calls, you can essentially stack them together. And we're going to actually demo a bit of that. Transcribe itself, it supports multiple languages. Today it's English and Spanish, and it's going to continue to expand from there. We also have intelligent punctuation, so actually it can usually tell by the intonation, is this a question the person's asking, is there actually a full stop, and be able to insert that. It actually has timestamping of every word it finds, so you actually can get the exact sequence and time. It's not just one big block of text. You actually have every component word, as well as the predicted confidence level of what that word was essentially, what the system believed the word to be. So 100% confidence, probably pretty certain. Lower levels, then you might actually have to have some remediation in a manual way to confirm that this was actually the text that was spoken. Support for telephony quality audio, so 8 kilohertz, which is a very typical usage for call centers, very low quality, and it's the idea that it can actually manage that level of quality and still obtain good results. And recognizing multiple speakers is a feature that's coming. And currently Transcribe is in preview. You have to whitelist yourself as an AWS user. You can actually just request access to that. Translate. So when we look at Translate, so it's about creating this fluent language translation. So the idea is that you can do real-time translation. So let's say your service requires that you be able to take in English and be able to translate to another language, like, again, simplified Chinese, or back again. You have that capability of calling the API and doing that all real time. It's a very simple API. There's really just one call. So I'll demonstrate that. You can do that in batch as well. You could maybe have some additional information. Maybe it's customer comments that are coming in one language and be able to localize or change that information and translate it to your preferred language. Automatic language recognition, so I actually can sense which language it was that was fed to it. And a low cost. You're paying only time that you use it. Poly, that's that lifelike text-to-speech. It's the opposite of transcribe. It's the idea I want to project this text out into a vocal pattern that matches close to natural speech. So you have a wide selection of voices, as mentioned, 52 different voices that you can assign, and then you have 20-some languages that are supported in terms of the voices. Synchronizing the speech. So if you have a use case where you actually want to get speech marks, it actually, if I give it a script and I say, I want to say, welcome to AWS, it actually will tell me exactly at what point is the enunciation of the statement happening. So I can actually get speech marks. With speech marks, now I can actually try to form something with a virtual avatar to have it moving its mouth in a particular pattern, a viseme, to match to the sound that's coming out of Poly. So you get that kind of fine-grained information. And unlimited replay. So the idea is typically people will store that. You can store it to MP3. You can store it to your local file system. You can store it up to S3. So these are options that you have. Amazon Comprehend. So this is about the sentiment analysis piece. It does detection of the sentiment, the language that's being given to it. It understands the sentiments that are being stated within that text. It understands the entities, and entities are often like key proper nouns, right? So maybe like Singapore, I recognize Mir Lion. And so it understands there's key entities in the text, and it also could understand some key phrases, and key phrases could be things like, Grand Slam, or something that's kind of has some meaning or has something meaningful that then you can extract from that, and perhaps you could then run your analytics on top of that. After that becomes an unsupervised learning piece for topic analysis. You actually can feed it a corpus of data, and so Washington Post does this, and they feed it a ton of articles, and then it can basically come back. You tell it how many topics do you suspect are inside this, or just to give it a number that you want to assign to identify how many topics are there, and then it'll go back and try to sort through and sift and figure out and suss out what is the actual underlying topics of these different pieces of content. So now you could group content based off the different context or the different underlying topics. So finally, we have Amazon Lex, as mentioned earlier. It's mostly for chatbot. Chatbot is essentially what everybody's talking about. The idea that you can have an automated way of responding to your customers to be able to provide an interface that maybe is accessible through a Facebook Messenger or accessible through a mobile application. To be able to speak in language, to speak the words, as well as to be able to handle the natural language understanding of text. So that's Lex. That's, again, Alexa, but as a self-hosted, self-managed, not self-hosted, but self-managed platform that you can build around. So I need to switch over to the demos now. I just want to quickly show you, first of all, everything I'm showing you, if you have an AWS account, you're logged in, you can access all of this yourself, right? So I would just briefly show you that if you want to test out things like facial comparison, there's already examples. So don't take my word for it. Test it out yourself, see the quality of the results. So you can actually upload photos. I won't go into this, but the idea is that these are the things that you can do from the console. So recognition will show you both the request that's actually sent. You'll see that this is the JSON that's sent to the API service. Kind of small there. But you can actually see the calls and the responses that happen from the service. So again, this is something that you can do after this session that you can actually test out yourself. Translate. Again, it's a real-time translation service that you can call out here. Again, I won't show this to you because you can look at it yourself. But I will show you under the covers, and maybe we'll run through a couple of examples here. So for instance, in this case, I'm going to show you how to access it using the AWS SDK for Python, which is called Bato 3. And so basically what you do is, if we step through this demonstration, I'm simply telling it I want to create a client that will talk to Translate and a client that will talk to Poly. And then I give it a message that I would like to actually translate from English to Deutsch, so essentially German. And you can see that here is the translated text listed below, right? And that's great, but let's take it a little bit further. So I'm going to actually take that translated text, and I want to have Poly create a voice around it. So I'm going to tell Poly, go ahead and generate some content. I tell it the voice type. I want to tell it the text I would like to feed into it. And then I now have some sound. Do we have sound?
Dem Amazon Web Services Summit in Singapur. Wir hoffen, Sie genießen den Tag.
Okay, so hopefully you guys heard all that. So now I want to take that same phrase that was translated in German. I want to translate it back. And so I see it again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amazon Web Services Summit. So I pass that back.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Amazon Web Services Summit in Singapore. We hope you enjoy the day.
Yeah, so we basically can continue to pass that back. So the idea is that we did a full round trip of text, and we're able to successfully translate that. Another example is Comprehend. So let's take a look at Comprehend. We basically have a lot of videos available on Amazon Video, and so we have actually a collection of free openly available for you to use as well for your machine learning tests. But of movie reviews that were performed. So if we come down here, I'm basically iterating through the movie reviews, and I get the top 5, the first 5 I find. And you can see it a bit, but it's kind of small, but basically it's in JSON response, an array of different movie reviews, along with a sentiment number indicating what we believe the sentiment to be. So the very first review.
I had big expectations because I love English TV, in particular investigative and detective stuff, but this guy is really boring. It didn't appeal to me at all.
Okay, so it seems overwhelmingly negative. The guy's boring. So we have another one. Let's take a look at a second review.
This one is a real snoozer. Don't believe anything you read or hear. It's awful. I had no idea what the title means. Neither will you.
Yeah, so again, it gives you an idea of the voice quality, but more so, you see there's actually 4 different categories of sentiment. It's measured. It's measuring positive, negative, mixed, and neutral. So the idea is that mixed means I love Singapore, but it's too hot, right? Something like that. So you have a mixed meaning inside of it. Neutral could be Amazon Web Services was founded in 2006. So there's nothing positive or negative to that connotation, in connotation around that. So those are all examples. This one's a mixed one.
Mysteries are interesting. The tension between Robson and the tall blonde is good, but not always believable. She often seemed uncomfortable.
Yeah, so you get an idea. Beyond that, if we want to actually see that sentiment analysis, I just basically have the CSV of that data, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually check for key phrases inside of it. So some of the key phrases that are identified, English TV is one key phrase that's identified. This series, television, there was expectations. This guy. So there's just some key phrases it thinks has some importance to the meaning of what that statement was about. And further to that, you can actually derive the entities from that and actually look at that. So again, The idea is this is a demonstration of Python, but Python is one of many languages that we support using AWS SDKs. So if you are a developer, and I assume you have done something with it, all these examples could easily be in JavaScript or Java or whatever your favorite language is. So this gives you an idea of what is possible in terms of integration of your applications with AWS. You can see how the power of these application services can accelerate your ability to deliver innovation to your customers. I want to thank you for listening to me, and I'd like to ask you to please take a moment to fill out the survey. We really appreciate your feedback. Thank you.